Hey guys, Gabe Peña here. I was going to do a contest write-up about the whole Arnold experience, but I've been delaying getting my YouTube up and running for some time now, so I thought, why not do a video write-up instead? Good video, get up there. Any of you who are interested in knowing what the whole experience was like, I'll clue you in a little bit. Where to begin? I mean, it feels very strange to be back after spending the whole weekend over in Columbus. Being over there, life was essentially living on the world stage surrounded by an incredible, strong group of athletes that coming back home to Edinburgh, South Texas, it still feels like things haven't really slowed down yet. It's the same effect as having that constant ringing in your ears not going away because of how fast-paced and how great everything was. So being from South Texas, getting to Columbus in the first place, and it was 28 degrees outside, that was a little bit different from the 95 degrees we have back home pretty much consistently around. That was really cool. I enjoyed seeing snowfall. That was the first time I'd see snowfall in about 12 years, so that definitely added to the whole experience itself. Then being there surrounded by the whole festival, you've got not just the athletes, but you've got people coming from all around the world to come to this amazing event, and so there's a tremendous amount of energy in the air from everyone who wants to be there for whatever sport they're there for. There's a great energy in the air, and I feel like I really fed off of that as an athlete, and that added to the whole experience itself. Getting into the whole competition part of the weekend, the rules meeting on Thursday night was a pretty cool experience because that's when I got to see all the guys that I'd be competing against. In my weight class, we're talking about 40 of the strongest heavyweight amateurs from around the entire world. Not only was it just the guys from the U.S., I mean, we got guys from Poland, Estonia, Russia, just all over, and that was pretty incredible to see these guys. I don't really see myself in the mirror. I don't really get to see myself from a first-person point of view too often. So seeing all these other guys there, it's like, damn, these are some big fucking dudes. And to know that I'm amongst the ranks of these guys, that was a pretty cool experience in itself. So the whole rules meeting was at first kind of seeing what the field looked like, and it was a very impressive spread of athletes. And, not to get into the actual day one yet, but knowing that these guys are at the top of their game, you go to nationals, you've got the guys there who are good, you've got the guys there who are great. Here at the Arnold, everyone there was great. Everyone there had earned their spot there. So it's not like you're going to have these massive point spreads during the competition itself. And that energy is something very empowering. You'll never get that in training. You might have a training partner every now and then who comes pretty close to you, but when you're talking about 40 other guys who are at peak strength from around the world, that right there pushes you hell of a lot stronger than any training day that you'll have. Getting into day one, this was a lot of fun. Off the bat, this is one of the biggest crowds I've ever competed in front of. So you're going in there, the whole expo's going on, and we're right there in front, set up at the stage with the risers and the crowd gathered all around. The stage looked really well set up. The Strongman Corporation staff did a really good job having the field ready. But first event of the day was the log press. Now, I'm going to be telling you a little bit of my personal experience with my training leading up to the event. About 2 months out of the Arnold, I had injured my shoulder somehow. There was no specific main onset when it happened, but it's basically an impingement in the anterior part of my deltoid and my rotator cuff that certain ranges of motion will give me a little bit of trouble. So going into the log press, I knew this was the one shoulder-driven exercise of the competition itself. And if my shoulder was going to bother me, it was going to be this one. Now, I had been getting physical therapy work and mobility work done on my shoulder to where over the course of the 2 months since I had injured my shoulder, it got a lot better. And I was able to start pressing those weights. I know that a week out from the competition, I was able to do multiple reps with the competition weight, and I felt like a freight train moving it around. So that was empowering. But still, going into the competition, I knew that the log press was going to be an issue because of the fact that I had that injury with my shoulder. Time started, just like any other event, I'm going in there and I'm going to give it my all no matter what. Cleaned up the log, pressed it up overhead once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I got really close to a fifth. I got my arms just about right here, and then for whatever reason, my triceps just gave out. I could not get it. But knowing that I almost got 5 when 2 months ago I might not have even been able to squeeze away with 1 at 330 pounds, that was pretty good. And that was what I felt would be my weakest event of the entire competition. So after getting those 4 reps, that placed me at the upper middle of the pack. I was feeling pretty good at that point. Actually, when I got off the stage or the field, I had, just gone like a horse with the blinds on the whole time. I had only thought that I had gotten 3 reps. I went back and looked at the video. I got 4 reps, so I was in a much better mood, to say the least, after I realized that I got 4 reps instead of those 3. So log press was good. It's very empowering after having come back from the injury that I had on my shoulder. So that, moving on to the frame carry. Now, I have what I think is a fairly strong grip, and moving events are not something that have really troubled me too much. There's athletes like Ryan Imbach and Dave Daly who are just incredible at moving events, and those 2 guys there, competing against them, that definitely motivates me to give it my all, as if I wasn't doing that already, but definitely adds fuel to the fire. Moving events and frame carries have never been a problem. I've been practicing them routinely over the course of the Arnold prep. Moving 700 on my frame over 100 feet was no problem. So this 730, and on the Beast Metals frame, I personally like the Beast Metals frame. It's a lot more narrow on the handles than the frame that I train with. So having that wide grip really, on my frame, made the narrow handles a lot easier to control, and the coating on the Beast Metals handles was really good. It had a nice grip when you use chalk to it too. So picked that frame up. I cleared the whole distance in 10.04, I believe. So barely over 10 seconds, and that brought me to a really good position towards the upper part of the group. Lots of people were dropping that frame. Unfortunately, one of my Team Texas mates had torn his hand open on the frame, and that was a big fear of mine. I hadn't competed in the USA Classic in August of last year, and I ripped my hands open pretty good on an 800-pound frame, and that kind of traumatized me a little bit. I hoped it wouldn't happen here. It didn't, thank God, and I moved that frame just with speed in 10 seconds. I felt great. I had to lead out that little yell towards the end because I just felt very accomplished. It was not a struggle at all. And so moving into the third event, I was very pleased that I believe they changed the order of the events. It was supposed to be the carry medley right after the frame, but they moved the deadlift, and the deadlift is the one event that I have been looking forward to. Despite it being an axle and being off a 4-inch deficit, deadlift is my event. I've always been great at deadlift. I aspire to be even better. I want deadlift world records in my career. And so I went in there wanting to prove myself on the deadlift. All holds were off. I don't like having any holds on what I go through, but deadlift is my event. I went in there feeling very strong off the bat. 675 pounds off a 4-inch deficit on an axle. That's me. That's me right there. A lot of people gave me some positive feedback because they enjoyed the pictures floating around the internet of me with my hair down while I had the deadlift. And, I let my hair down all throughout the deadlifts. Not necessarily because I want to look like fucking Conan the Barbarian or Thor or anything like that, but on all my deadlifts, especially my main ones, I'm in front of a massive crowd of people, and I want to be in my zone. And not that the crowd throws me off, but you'll see in my video, I'll go through the deadlifts, and just like I said, the analogy before, like a horse with blinds on, I just go, and I see red, I don't stop, I just keep moving on through. I moved through the first 6 reps nonstop. I know that 5 reps was the number to beat, so I went there and did 6 before I even thought about stopping. That 6th rep was a hell of a lockout. It was a grinder. I loved it though. I loved every second of it. After that 6th rep, I knew I was in first. Aaron West, the MC, was calling. I could hear him throughout the whole course of my deadlifts, and just kind of like, almost like I was underwater, but hearing his voice kind of faint off in the distance. Gabriel Peña locking out his 4th rep, and Gabriel Peña just locked out his 6th. Now he takes the lead. That was just awesome. I knew I had the lead at that point. I took a knee. I had about 20 seconds left. I wanted to catch my breath, build up as much energy as I could. I know I was pretty close to my breaking point, so I bided as much energy as I could. I gave an attempt at a 2nd rep and got it to right below the knee and whether or not I could have grinded it out and kept moving it up, it was at that breaking point, and I feel that pushing that lift would have possibly compromised my performance on the following events with that carry medley, the frame, holding the stone of steel, because those were all very back driven. Screwed my hamstrings or my erectors up on one final rep that turns out I didn't even need. Was not something I was interested in doing. So after that deadlift, came off that in first place. Of all the events that I would want to win, the deadlift was the one that carried the most meaning to myself personally as an athlete. I love the deadlift. I've always prioritized it, so I felt on top of the world at that point, coming off as first place. No one beat it in the last run of athletes. That was my victory. And at that point, it was like, did I just get the #1 deadlift out of all the amateurs in the world right now? That reality set in, and I was just overcome with pride. I was panting my ass off in the stands, but I just had the biggest smile on my face, like, fuck yeah, I did it. And things got serious at that point, because when the points came out, my placing had had moved me all the way up to second place, right behind Polish strongman Mateusz Ostaszewski. And I'm going to be talking about him throughout the course of this video. That guy is an incredible athlete, powerhouse. We were neck and neck the whole way, but to see my name right there, #2, right behind Mateusz, that was awesome. And I felt very empowered and alive after that deadlift. You know, deadlifts, you set a new record or you do well in that, you feel that shit in your soul. I was told that by someone, and it's true. It brings you to life, and a new part of you. You tap into some strength that you didn't know was there, but it rears its head, and you are just empowered beyond belief. So going into the final event of the day, that carry medley, I had a lot of momentum. And the carry, we've got 2 kegs and a sandbag, all relatively close to 300 pounds over a 60-foot course, running them down, sprinting back, taking the other one down. The challenge with this one is you have to have those kegs standing up and fully on the mat at the end of that course. So a lot of people were not only fumbling the kegs every now and then, but when they would run them over, they wouldn't have the kegs standing up, or it would be slightly off the mat, and they would have to run back. And you're talking losing time and time off of that. And there was an element of, Gabe, make sure you don't fuck this up. You make sure those kegs are placed down. You make sure they're locked into position, and don't lose any time. You've got Ryan Ambach and Dave Daly, the 2 bulldozers on moving events, just moving very, very quick. And then in one of the latter heats, here comes Zach Hadge, the middleweight competitor in the midst of all the heavyweight strongmen, and he comes in and with a 41-second time on his carry medley, the new leader of that pack, beating Ryan and beating Dave. And that was a moment that I knew that, man, not only do I have to worry about freaking powerhouse Mateusz right next to me, but Zach took the lead with that event at that point. I was in the last heat because of my placing on the deadlift, and I was second overall. So in my lanes, it was me on one lane, then Mateusz right in the other, and that was cool. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I want to be against my direct rival right there at the moment of competition. So I went into that doing everything that I know that I needed to do, being very cautious. I'm good on my feet. I can move, and I can move well. I can move securely. I can move strong. Carried the first keg, picked it up, took it down. You know, Mateusz was just a beast on these kegs. The dude takes up in that stance and just keeps moving. On the keg carries, he did get a little bit of ground on me. He was moving very quickly with those kegs in hand. And I picked up a little bit of that ground on my sprint back. I do sprints in my workout. I'm a heavy guy. At 310 pounds, I don't get very many opportunities to move fast. But one of the things I love doing is sprinting, because sounds corny, but I feel like I'm flying when I'm sprinting. I love tapping into that every now and then. I pride myself in the speed that I have, especially on short distance sprints. So I was able to pick up a little speed on those sprints. Second keg, picked it up. Mateusz still moved that one very quickly down the field. And sprint back, have my kegs both securely in place, sprint back to that sandbag. Sandbags, I have a 300-pound sandbag. It's a strong fit sandbag back at my gym. And, you know, it's a lot longer than those Ironman sandbags that we were using. And with my sandbag, I had been practicing one motions right up off the ground, picking it up into the carry and just taking straight off that bat. And that's something that really helped me out. Tipped that sandbag over, got my hand under, picked it up, and took off. Mateus, he picked up his sandbag, and he bear hugged it. Didn't really give him too much clearance on the hips. I got mine up way above my hips, right between my stomach and my chest. I took off running. I gained speed. Once I'm running and I look to my side and I don't see him anymore. He's behind me. Like, yes! Hold on. I get it there. Victory again on that one. I checked my time. My timer showed me the clock and said 40.08. I beat Zach Hadge by a full second. And, the final two events of day one, coming out as a first place victor in the world of the amateurs. That is very, very empowering. Of course, that gave me enough points to bump me up into first place overall at the end of day one. You know, there was a part of me that knows that I have this, but being still very fresh to the sport, this is my first Strongman Corp Nationals leading up to the Arnold. This is my first Arnold. To come into this competition so fresh, never being on this world stage before, and then to get that first place victory on two events, and then going into the finals in first place overall out of the strongest heavyweight amateurs in the entire world. Wow, talk about a rush right there. At that point, things got very real. I knew that I could see it. I could see myself with that victory in hand, being the top heavyweight amateur in the world. It was very much within my grasp. Two more events, you know, at that point, I had felt pretty decent about those two events that were remaining. I definitely saw myself winning. And held it to be a very strong possibility. And you've got to do that. You've got to be able to see yourself, envision it, that you can achieve these things, or you're not going to happen. Eddie Hall even said it. What the fuck are you doing going into these competitions if you can't see yourself walking out in first place? You've got no business to be there. I saw myself, and it was a very titillating thought to possibly be the heavyweight champion of the world and to be the next Strongman Corporation Pro. So Saturday was the day that we had completely off, resting in between day one and day two. I felt pretty good after day one. You know, I trained pretty rigorously throughout my contest prep and just throughout the year in general. That I felt a little tight, maybe in the elbow flexors area from that sandbag carry. My back was slightly tight, not too sore by any means. It felt like another day at the gym, to be honest. I didn't feel very beat up. I felt good. I felt ready, especially for day two. And it was just going into that, it was sorry, I lost my train of thought. I felt good. I didn't feel sore. I was ready for it. And Saturday was our day to just kind of eat, recover if I needed to, take those contrast showers, do some mobility work and some tissue therapy. But it was also our day to enjoy the Expo. Now, Saturday was also the most hectic day there at the Expo. It didn't take long for us to regret going into that center because, man, we were just dead stop foot traffic in the middle of that convention hall for a lot of the time. I did get to meet a couple really cool people that I had set out there to meet. I got to meet Matt Vincent, Highland Games world champion, just an incredible athlete who anyone can learn a lot from. And in such a specialized sport like the Highland Games, you can appreciate all the technique and effort that this guy puts into it. Not to mention, a big goal of mine, especially as I coach a lot of CrossFit athletes also, so I'm very aware of the King Kong WOD. That is something that I want to do. I got to get muscle ups first, and being at 310 pounds is not the easiest endeavor, but I saw Matt Vincent. He did that King Kong WOD, and he just crushed it. So just more reasons to want to meet this guy. Very nice guy. I'm glad I got to meet him. He congratulated me on my efforts on day one, and he even told me, "What the fuck are you doing here? This is a madhouse. You need to get out of here. You need to rest and relax for day two." But I had one thing that I needed to see. The pro strongmen were competing on the main stage that day. It was the log lift was up first, the Austrian oak, the big 450-pound log. And so I wanted to go and see that. It took a while to get over there. On the way, I got to meet Brandon Lilly. He was moving to somewhere, probably going to the animal cage, but that was really important for me to meet him. I tore my bicep 2 years ago, and throughout the whole recovery phase, I couldn't really do much strongman events, so my focus shifted to a little bit more of a powerlifting style training. Brandon Lilly, this guy was at the top of his game. You know, hitting some unreal numbers raw, and he had a no bullshit attitude towards his training and athletic progression, and that really spoke to me when I was down in the whole recovery phase. To see this guy, to learn from him, to learn from his cube method, and he was a mentor of sorts to me, and I wanted to make sure I got to tell him that in person. So I did, and that had a lot of sentimental value to me. I'm glad I bumped into Brandon. I hope it's not too long before our paths cross again. But then we were right there at the main stage. The log was being set up. They had just brought the Austrian oak on stage, and they moved it up in weight from last year. Last year I believe it was 440 pounds. This year it's 450 pounds. And guys that I had only seen through screens before: Big Z, Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, Hafthor Bjornsson, Lalas. I've met Dimitar before, a very nice guy. Just these guys who seem so much larger than life, and they're right there in front of me. That was a very cool experience. And, the Austrian oak, that's such a big log that lots of only two athletes got it, the two Lithuanians, Lalas and Big Z got it. So watching all the athletes go and try it, that was really cool. But then Big Z, just, oh my God, talk about a powerhouse right there. Effortless cleans, effortless presses overhead. Definitely the strongest log presser that has ever lived. Very, very impressive, and made me even more hungry as an athlete. Not to mention Polish strongman Mateusz Kielzakowski. He's got a hard name to say, but he was up there on the main stage. You see him from a distance compared to giants like Shaw and Thor. The guy doesn't look too big. He's tapping into the lower end of 300 pounds, but cleaning the log. He almost got the log overhead too. And this guy looks like he's got a smaller frame than the other guys on stage, and he is able to hold his own and hang with the bigger guys. That was impressive, because pound for pound, this guy is just putting up unreal numbers, and any athlete can appreciate that and just respect it like crazy. After seeing all the pros, I had my fill of the Arnold for that day. Made me ever hungry for day 2. I know that if I could seal the victory at the Arnold, I would get an automatic invite to compete alongside these guys the next year at the Arnold Pro Strongman Classic. I belong there. I know I do. I want to do everything I can to prove to the world and myself that I can hang with those guys and I can put up numbers. Eventually, I want to beat them. And you can say whatever you want about my mentality towards to do that. It's going to happen. Just you wait and watch. So that I wanted to see that for going into day 2. Saturday was very restful. Did nothing but eat, sleep, recover. Felt very good going into day 2, especially with day 2 being in the afternoon, not in the morning. That gave even more time to rest and eat up. But the day 2, first place, leader of the pack, I was focused beyond belief. My focus was on point. We get backstage, right to the left of the main stage. As soon as I walk backstage, there's Big Z sitting in the corner. Eddie Hall is not too far away from him. And two guys larger than life. And I'm right there, less than 20 feet away from them. As I see them, big figure, 6 foot, 10, Hafthor Bjornsson walks by. I'm focused. I'm incredibly focused. I'm ready to kick some ass. But at the same time, the voice in the back of my mind, like, whoa, these guys, my idols, are all here. And as soon as Thor walks by, Brian Shaw, big giant from Colorado, comes walking down the stairs off the stage, still covered in tacky, fresh off of his effortless world record Atlas stone load. I couldn't resist. That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right there. I got to snag a little bit of a picture, but that's motivated me even more. See this guy load this 550-pound stone right over a bar with ease was what I needed going into the Stone of Steel. Stone of Steel. Let's begin on that doozy. I was very lucky to get my hands on a Stone of Steel a couple months out from the Arnold. I'm glad I got to. It's nothing like a concrete stone. Plate loaded, powder coated steel. The density of the plates is very different than concrete. If you went into that competition thinking that training concrete stones would be all you needed to effectively work that Stone of Steel, you're going to be sorely surprised. Everything's different about it. The grip is different. You get no tacky chalk only, and it's just a very different beast of its own. But I did have experience with it. I had a little bit of confidence because I had gotten to get my hands on it. One of the cool things that I liked is that Roizo grip shirts were given to us as the competitors, and the Roizo grip shirts are really, really cool shirts to have. Now, I got to use them on the warming up on the increment weights leading up to the competition weight on the stones. And let me tell you, getting that stone to my lap, one of the hard things in training with regular shirts was that because of the powder coat of that stone, especially if sweat's involved, I mean, that stone, you get it up and it's just spinning right out from under you as soon as you try to pick it up. But those grip shirts, they've got the grip right all up on the top, nice rubber patches that you pick it up and it just sticks, effortless loads the whole way up once you get them to the lap. And that was really cool. I'm glad that Strongman Corporation and Roizo were able to let the athletes have those shirts for the competition. Definitely an excellent addition. So, warming up, we did 200, 260, 300. Everything was just moving well. I felt like a beast on those warm-ups. The stones were just moving up, no problem. And here comes the competition weight, 375 pounds. Now, in my training, the heaviest weight that I had done on the stone was 320 pounds. And it was tough. It was tough as hell. Like I said, I didn't have a grip shirt, but regardless of the grip shirt or not, that was tough. And when Strongman Corporation released the weight for the Atlas Stone, I'm not going to say it to everyone in the world because they're my competitors, but in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck is 375 pounds? No one's going to get this. This is the heaviest I've done is 320 pounds, and that was maximal. That was like 1 rep max right there. But with the grip shirts, with the way that the warm-up was going on back behind the stage, I felt very strong and ready to go. So, 375 pounds, I got this. I've had this stone. I've gotten to practice. A lot of these guys haven't gotten to practice. I went on that stage, grabbed that stone, set up, secure grip, pick up, get that stone to my lap. Only when I picked up, the stone didn't follow. It was just not coming up. I got it maybe an inch off the ground at tops, but just scraping right off my forearms right here. Couldn't get it up off the ground. Had I gotten it to my lap, especially with that grip shirt, that stone would have been up over the bar in no time. But it wouldn't come up. 375 pounds, that pick up off the ground was just ridiculous. And we're talking about that weight as you've got that secure grip. Because of the coating, that weight is moving away from you as you're picking it up. So you've got your biceps flexing under that strain of the weight. This was a bicep buster for a lot of people. I don't think anyone tore their bicep, but everyone was definitely feeling that the day after the competition. Because you try to wrap your hands under it, especially as you're failing, you get those elbows bent a little bit to get that extra bit of a cradle, but the biceps take a pounding. I couldn't get a rep. I couldn't get the stone up off the ground. And only 2 athletes were able to get the stone off the ground. We had our Russian athlete, I don't have his name right now, but he was from Russia. He got 3 reps with the stone. Holy shit. 3 reps, pick up off the ground with a 375 stone of steel. Just phenomenal. And then there comes the Hoginator. Zach, weighing at 231, comes in, does a couple tries, can't get the stone to budge, taps into that crazy focus of his. He gets that stone up off the ground, and he grinds through 1 load and gets it up over the bar. And that's all he needed. That 1 load took him from the bottom end of the top 10 finalists to now he was in 2nd place. I mean, that was fucking awesome, Zach. If you're watching this, you blew everyone's mind at that point. Now, I don't think the weight at this... I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm just giving my input for the sake of the video. I don't think the weight of the stone was fair to the crowd. We're up on that main stage to put on a show, especially when you have the pros going. Make us amateurs look good. We've got the stone of steel that we need to have up there, and we want to get some reps going on. 8 of the 10 heavyweights, including myself, were not able to get a single weight. I mean, what the hell? Drop the weight down even 25 pounds. Make it 350. Let's get some reps. Let's get the athletes having that cheer from the massive crowd in front of none of us have competed against a crowd, in front of a crowd that big. Having those reps, getting the crowd to cheer instead of seeing athlete after athlete zero the event and not getting to pick up that stone from the ground. I just think if I was in the crowd, I would have been severely disappointed. Like, what the fuck are we doing watching these guys? These guys are clearly not as good as the real thing, the big pros on the stage. I thought that was very disappointing to the crowd, and it was frustrating, especially having the stone to practice on. I felt very confident and just defeated. I gave it everything I had, but that was some invaluable contest insight that I did not have the strength that I needed to win that competition on that day. And it's going to eat away at me for a very long time. In a positive way. It's going to affect my training in a good way. I'm going to always think about this. That had I gotten just one rep with that stone, where would that put me in the point spread? It's a pretty hard thought to think, and I definitely had my moment after I got back to the hotel room after day 2. But one rep of that stone, had I got one rep, would I have come out as the world champion? Would I have gotten my heavyweight pro card? Would it have been me instead of Zach? And those thoughts, a weak individual will have them weigh down on him like a very heavy yoke and not be able to come back from that. However, me on the other hand, what's the point of being weighed down and being depressed about it? Instead, I'm going to think about that. It is going to eat at me, but in a way that it's going to positively move my training forward to the next level. And I want to get that stone. When I get that stone, I'm going to tag you in it, Zach, so I can rub it in your face that I got it too. But my strength was not there on that day. That was one thing that I was weak on, that I obviously needed more strength to be the strongest man on that stage on that given day. But the weight was not good for the crowd. It was just a shit show. I would have been disappointed if I was in the crowd. Disappointed as an athlete, I would have been disappointed as a spectator. So that was that. You know, you fail an event, you can't let that weigh you down because you still got another event. These competitions are fights to the very end. That brought me down from first place to third. Zach, the Russian, me, Mateus, right behind me. Next was the frame hold. Same weight that we were using, 730 pounds on the carry. We had to pick it up and hold for time. I felt good. My grip is strong. You know, I proved it on day 1 that I could carry that weight over a significant distance. And got up on stage, the crowd's roaring. I'm going against my Texas brother, Trey Mitchell. Just like we always, every competition we do, there's always an event where we come head to head. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's great energy. I pick up that frame, and I'm holding it. I've got a solid grip. My traps are well engaged. You know, 5 seconds in, I feel not my grip giving out. The chalk in between my hand and the bar. There's so much of it, and it's caked on there that I feel the chalk moving between my hand and the bar. And it gave me some invaluable insight to check these frames. And you guys need to do this too. If you have a frame hold or a frame carry, check those handles. Athletes are going to cake the shit out of those handles with chalk. If there is a very real point where there's too much chalk on the bar and you are not going to be able to get a good grip because there is so much chalk that you've got several membranes of chalk in between you and that bar that is going to spin around. And that cost me some seconds. I strongly feel if I would have wiped down those bars, again, not to make excuses, but this is insight for next time I have a frame carry. If I get to wipe down those bars, put my own layer of chalk and not be relying on, have my own layer of chalk in my hands, but put whatever chalk is on the bars, what I put there, not what someone had put there before me. I strongly feel like I would have added at least 5 seconds to my time. I came out of that event with 15 seconds. You know, that was the upper average right there. Mateus got a little bit longer than 15 seconds, just barely longer than me. But that was after that all was said and done. I got 5th place overall. 5th strongest in the entire world is a huge accomplishment. I'm incredibly proud of my efforts. Not only did I make the finals, which was a very big goal of mine, but I made 1st place going into the finals. Fuck yeah. and I got 5th place in the entire world out of all the amateur heavyweights. Fuck yeah. And it was great. It was awesome. And I got to see the score spread at the very end also. The crazy thing is, Mateus and I actually tied in points, to where technically we tied for 4th place. Strongman Corporation gave me 5th place. 5th, 4th. It's not 1st. 5th strongest in the world. I'm not going to argue with that. But I did technically tie for 4th. But it was awesome. I mean, after having that 1st place win going into day 2, it was very real. Like I said, I could see myself stealing the victory and walking away with my pro card. That was very real to me. The whole time I was focused backstage leading up to day 2, I could see it happening. I could see myself winning, getting the reps of the stone, crushing that frame, coming out as the next pro. So in that regard, it was very hard to sit on that stage, and when I was called out as 5th, to stand there and pretend that I was happy with where I was. Part of me is proud. I mean, that's 5th in the world. It's incredible. But at the same time, it was a little bit tough to sit there when I knew that I had seen myself over and over and over again in that 1st place position. That was one of the hardest things to do, to sit in front of that crowd and fake a smile. And but having that whole crowd stare back at me, knowing I was in the top of the world, pun intended, that was great. Talk about unforgettable moments in my life, but left me ever hungry for more. I know I can come back, and I know I can win 1st place. I know I can be a heavyweight pro, because the first 4 events of the competition were grueling events. Those were true strongman events right there. And I came out in 1st place after that. I beat all these guys already. I've already done it. I can do it again. That's the mentality I'm having going back into this. I have weakness I need to address. I don't want my grip to ever fail me, ever, regardless of chalking between me and the bar. I want there to never be doubt on my grip strength. And I want to train that stone of steel. Whether or not they have it in competitions again, if it was a one-time thing, I'm going to train it. I want to work up to 400 pounds and be able to get 400 pounds chalk only up and over the bar for multiple reps. 2 weaknesses, if I address those, that makes me stronger overall. That makes me the strongest man. I'll do it. So that was the Arnold. Unforgettable weekend right there. I was on the world stage. I want to say a huge congratulations to Zach Hodge. He won the world championship last year, and he got his pro card as a middleweight athlete. He weighed in at 231 pounds. You know, over 100 pounds under a lot of these guys competing, and he came out in 1st place of all the heavyweights. I mean, you talk about amazing feats of strength, and that's just, it doesn't get any better than that right there. Congratulations, Zach. Very well earned. Just impressive. I'm very proud to have competed and shared the field with you. I look forward to seeing what you will bring to the sport. Throw on some more pounds for the next year's competition. We got to get you to put on a good show with all those pros. I also want to congratulate the rest of my Team Texas mates. We had 5 athletes, including myself, from Texas, making it to the Arnolds. 4 of us made it to day 1. Congratulations to Caitlin, Amber, Brian, and Trey. We all represented the Lone Star State. Hell of a strong performance from everyone. It was a great weekend. I'm glad to have represented our state with you guys. Damn good job. I also want to give a big thanks to all my family, friends, fans, and supporters from all over the country. All of your posts, comments, texts, messages, all the shout-outs through the weekend just made me feel unstoppable. Made me feel on top of the world. And I did not know I had so much support out there. And it just felt great to know you guys were behind me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And follow me closely. I will definitely keep putting on good shows for you guys. Most of all, I want to give a huge thanks to my girlfriend, Bianca. She came with me all the way to Columbus on another spectacular adventure and was supporting me the whole way through, forcing me to eat, forcing me to rest, giving me massages, words of encouragement, keeping me focused, and just just nonstop support from her. Bianca, I love you. Thank you for everything that you did and being there by my side. It means the world to me. You are my rock, and you help me pursue this crazy passion of mine. I look forward to the Arnold again next year. I'll be there. For sure I'll be there. I'm going to do everything I can to get that first place victory. And I've got some very invaluable insight on the weaknesses I need to address. It's going to happen. Look out, because I'm going to become a heavyweight pro in the very, very near future. I'm determined, headstrong, and more hungry than ever. That's my video write-up of the Arnold. I hope you enjoyed. I know I rambled on for 40 full minutes there. If you watched it, you should get an endurance medal. But I'll be posting more videos to my YouTube regularly. That's something I want to share with you guys, all my experiences, because it was great. Love you all. I'll talk to you soon.